We've all seen an ambulance screaming down the street or a helicopter rushing someone to the hospital. K10's Bailey Vaughn investigates the gap between the two and how the cost of care could end up costing you your life.
Your life is on the line and you dial 911, you know you can rely on an ambulance to show up fast. But if you need blood in Texoma, you're out of luck until one of these shows up. Now, helicopters can get to you fast, but when seconds are the difference between life and death, sometimes fast just isn't fast enough. So what's causing this delay? You might be thinking supply. There is a national shortage of blood, or maybe it's just tradition. Ground ambulances historically don't carry it. But with inflation tightening everyone's budget, does cost play a part in how fast you can get this potentially life-saving resource?
All the equipment that goes into an ambulance box is incredibly expensive.
I think if it saves one person's life, it's worth it.
The difference between a life saved and a life lost can be just seconds.
Those are frequent occurrences where somebody dies from bleeding to death because you can only do so much in the back of the ambulance without that blood.
Dr. Warden, who oversees 50 EMS agencies and over 800 medics for the Sooner State, has had enough of watching Oklahomans die waiting for blood.
Gunshot wounds that the person bled drastically. We were 2 hours from a trauma center. None of the helicopters were flying. So the best we could do was some IV fluids, drive real fast.
That waiting game leaves families grieving, reminded every day of their loss by empty seats at dinner tables all over Texoma.
It's also the postpartum hemorrhage patient. It's the post-surgical patient. It's the ectopic bleeding patient.
Loved ones gone too soon. According to first responders, some of these deaths could have been prevented.
We've had several patients that we know that their blood pressure's going bad and stuff of that nature, and we dump fluids in them and stuff like that, but we know that that's just a stopgap and that they really need blood and blood products.
A new push for faster access to blood has come from the Pre-Hospital Blood Transfusion Initiative Coalition, made up of America's heroes.
So they got out of the military, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Special Operations, came into the civilian world and looked around and said, well, the stuff we were doing in Afghanistan and Iraq, we're not doing here at home.
Their ultimate goal is to save lives. In the interim, though, they're focused on jump-starting conversations.
It hasn't even been a question that's been brought up. And as far as the cost level of it, I don't know that we would be able to provide that to our volunteer agencies.
And part of that conversation, the price tag.
The refrigerator just alone is well over $5,000. Epinephrine, we use it for cardiac. It is costing us about $600 a box. About 4 years ago, it was costing us about $18 a box.
Not to mention the cost of training paramedics. If you take pricing out of the equation, could supply meet demand?
It's something that we could facilitate if the funding was there and the regulations are followed. Our whole goal is to get the blood to the patients.
Medical professionals are looking for any life-saving edge they can get.
I think everybody understands that it would be optimal to have blood on all ambulances, all helicopters.
Although seconds matter, so does money, and purse strings are already tight.
It wouldn't be cost effective, one, because I don't know that it would necessarily save lives. I mean, there would be an occasion where it would save a lot, but I think quicker response times and good trained personnel are more the key than the cost of putting blood on an ambulance.
What's our reimbursement rate going to be? Is it going to be something that puts us in the hole even more?
Your life is invaluable, but the care to keep you alive, that has a price tag.
We're only required as a county to provide law enforcement and criminal justice services, in other words, the courts. We provide fire and EMS coverage because we think it's the right thing to do. It's not really a profit business. It's a service that's provided because we want the ambulance to be available.
For now, in Texoma, that ambulance will not carry blood. For K10 News, I'm Bailey Vaughn.
Now, in part 2 of this investigative series, we'll hear more from the group of veterans fueling this initiative. We'll explore what's happening at the state level in Oklahoma, and we'll break down the dollars and cents of what it really costs to get an ambulance up and running in this economy.